Have you ever had really crazy symptoms but never received a diagnosis? Well, that was me before rheumatoid arthritis. It all started in 2017, and I started to have extreme fatigue. I started to lose my vision in my left eye intermittently. I had tingling in my hands and my feet. I had balance issues, and I had documented hearing loss. All of these symptoms were just so weird and so bizarre. I started to see a lot of different specialists. We really thought that it was neurological and that I needed to see a neurologist. I had so many different MRIs. Nothing came up. I never received a diagnosis. After a while, I just got so exhausted. I didn't want to see any more doctors, and every single test always came back completely normal, and no one found anything. If you've ever been on a journey like this, it's so frustrating. You feel like you're a total crazy person, or that maybe you're making it up, or is it really happening? All of these things were so strange. But what I want to share today in this video is about a diagnosis that you will probably never receive. That is actually legitimate. It's a normal part of life, but most doctors, almost all doctors, are not trained in this particular field or subject because it's a natural part of life. And what I'm referring to is perimenopause. And what peri means about menopause is the time around the time of menopause. And so menopause, the definition is when you've gone 12 months without a menstrual cycle. And at the end of those 12 months, you're considered officially in menopause. The years leading up to those 12 months can be very hectic. If you are in the ages between 35 and 60, these apply to you. And you're probably thinking, what are all these symptoms that you described have to do with perimenopause? Well, that's a really good question. So perimenopause can begin sometime between 7 to 10 years before the official 12 months of consecutive no cycle menopause stage. 7 to 10 years before that even happens, you can start to experience symptoms. Isn't that crazy? Everything that I'm sharing with you in this video is basically things that I have learned from other sources. So I'm just sharing with you what I've learned. It's not necessarily my opinion or what I think you should do or what I think I should do, or I'm not declaring a particular diagnosis. I just want to share the information that I've recently discovered. So let's talk about some of the crazy symptoms that you may or may not experience during perimenopause. One of my friends recently just shared with me this website called bywynonna.com, and it's bywynonna.com, and I'll link it in the description box below. But on this website, I found this article is called How Changing Hormones Cause Menopause Symptoms. You are not going to believe how many symptoms you can actually experience during this transition time. I mean, we all kind of know that hot flashes are going to come along with menopause, but there are so many other ones that we need to discuss. So you can either have irregular or non-existent cycles. You can even have cold flashes, tingling of the extremities, dizziness, vertigo, weight gain, slow metabolism. Diabetes can show up during perimenopause. Okay, this is another one about mental health in the mental health section. This is so super important because during perimenopause, as you're getting closer to menopause, your hormone levels start to decrease. And so if they're decreasing, then your body's not functioning as though it did when it was younger. And so if you just think about it, a lot of people just say, oh, I'm tired and it's just old age. Well, part of it is because, our bodies as they age get older, or they just have wear and tear, and they just, we just kind of wear down from lack of energy. But if your hormone levels drop, there's so much to that is just so incredible. And it affects our mental health. Did you know that? With decreased hormone levels, you can have anxiety, fogginess, and concentration difficulties, mood swings, depression, memory lapse, and even panic attacks. Sleep and fatigue, you can have sleep problems, fatigue, and even irritability. I'm going to link this article below. Just look at all of these different symptoms you can experience. With your skin, you can have dry, wrinkly, itchy skin. Obviously, we know about sagging skin, wrinkly skin, age spots, all these things, but oh my goodness. You can also have more chronic pain, throughout your body. You can have incontinence. You can have hair loss. You can have more facial hair. I mean, it's just crazy. Look at all of these. You can have poor balance. You can have ringing in the ears. You can have hearing changes. I mean, just wow. Did you know this? I mean, is this like as eye-opening to you as it has been for me? This is crazy. One question we often hear about menopause symptoms is, how can hormones cause all of these symptoms? Well, the answer is it's complicated. Starting in your 30s or 40s, you will produce less and less estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. This stage is called perimenopause. Eventually, the continued drop of these hormones, your menstrual periods, will completely stop. After 12 consecutive months with no periods, you will have completed menopause and are in the stage called postmenopause. But what about the menopause transition? So perimenopause starts between 35 and 45. Menopause will happen sometime between 45 and 59, and then postmenopause is the rest of your life. Over 80% of women in perimenopause have far-reaching symptoms, including brain fog, anxiety, weight gain, low libido, depression, sleeplessness, exhaustion, headaches, stiff joints, and muscles. Isn't that crazy? The good news is that they can achieve effective treatments for perimenopause and menopause at Winona. So this particular part of the article, it talks about or shows kind of in a picture format common perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause symptoms. One of them in this list, it really drew my attention, and it's in the bottom right. It says electric shock feelings. So the crazy thing is, in April of 2023, I started to have an electric shock feeling in my left foot. And the first time I felt it, I thought there was like a bug or like an insect in the bottom of my shoe. And so I pulled my foot out of my shoe and there was nothing there. It was really weird. And I had this electric shock feeling for almost 2 months. It was crazy. And it got to the point where I just finally went to my primary doctor and I'm like, what's going on? And they referred me to a neurologist, but then again, they can't tell me anything. And eventually it just went away. Just imagine, what if this is what this was from? You know, like what if my symptoms were caused because my hormones dropped? This is the reason why doctors don't talk about it very much or treat it, is because menopause is not a disease. And like puberty, it is a stage of a woman's life. Winona has created this document hoping that you will find the information meaningful and that it can help you make the second half of your life even better than the first. Once we accept that menopause symptoms are treatable and can safely and effectively be treated, we can move into a phase of life that is far more welcoming. Signs of menopause will vary from woman to woman, but please do not ignore them because you are not alone. Safe, natural, bioidentical hormone replacement therapy is available at Winona if prescribed by a Winona physician. So there is some misconception about hormone replacement therapy, drops of hormones, and then the link with cancer. And the information that I have gathered is that when your hormone levels drop, then you are more susceptible to cancer and the risk of cancer goes up. By replacing your hormones, you're actually protecting yourself against cancer. Now, it depends on what type of hormone because there are so many different ones that you can take. So you can do your own research to find out which one is the best for you. I recently discovered a podcast on Dr. Andrew Huberman's podcast, and his podcast is called The Huberman Lab. But this particular podcast is from June 3rd of 2024, where he interviews Dr. Mary Claire Haber, who is a board-certified OBGYN and an expert on women's health and specifically menopause. I highly recommend that you go and listen to this podcast because they go into a lot of detail, and I am not a doctor, I am not an expert. So in this particular podcast, she elaborates that during medical school, when doctors go for specifically OBGYN training, they are not taught about menopause. It's very brief. They're trained and a lot of their focus and energy is spent on pregnancy and diseases or disorders. Their focus is not on menopause because it's viewed as just a natural part of life, a natural process that just happens. And so it's not viewed as this is something that we need to focus on or educate or even treat. There's such a lack of understanding or maybe even awareness with doctors. And so if you think about it, if OBGYNs are not necessarily focused on menopause or perimenopause, other doctors aren't either. So if you go to your primary doctor or you go to a cardiologist, a neurologist, anybody that you'd be going to about some of these symptoms, they're not going to say, hey, guess what? You're in the window of age 35 to 60. Maybe it's perimenopause. They're not even going to think about it. But that is something to take into consideration, especially if you're having crazy symptoms. I did actually receive a diagnosis about the vision loss in my eye. It's actually what is called migraine with aura without headache. And that was what was so confusing. I didn't know you could actually have a migraine without headache, but that actually exists. And the sensations I was having in my left eye, where I would completely go blind for several minutes, was crazy. That's actually called an aura. And so I did actually finally figure out what was causing my vision loss. I have never been able to find out what's caused my hearing loss. I know that I have family history of it. A lot of family members, as they've aged, have lost their hearing. But for me, it happened so early. I mean, I was in my mid-30s when I started to lose my hearing. And it wasn't induced by anything environmental, like going to loud concerts or something like that. So I have actually received some answers, I guess, about some of the things that I've gone through. But when I look back, my extreme fatigue started when I was 35. And now that I've learned what I've learned about perimenopause, it totally makes sense that possibly those are connected. And I never had any official testing. It's actually very difficult to test for perimenopause because your hormone levels can change so drastically, like throughout the day and throughout the month. And so if you took one little snapshot picture of your hormones, it's not necessarily going to be a definitive diagnosis. So the way menopause doctors treat it is based on symptoms, not based on blood tests. So if you're in that age range between 35 and 60, it's just kind of understood that that's the window where these symptoms can start to present themselves. You're welcome to go to Wynona's website and check them out. There is a referral link where you can get a percentage off of your first order. If you'd like to, you can click on that below. So I'm also going to link Madame Overy's website so you can check that out for some information. I'm also going to link the podcast to the Huberman Lab so you can listen to that as well. I just wanted to bring awareness to all of the different random symptoms that you can experience during the perimenopause window. It happens to different people, at different times based on your age. It also happens, you can experience all different types of symptoms. Some people don't experience hardly any at all, and some others experience many of them. So I just wanted to bring awareness to this and just kind of send you on a path to do your own research and find out what works for you. It's just kind of eye-opening. Once I figured this out, I was like, what in the world? Why didn't anyone ever tell me about this? And why did I not know more about this particular topic? So just wanted to bring it to your awareness. And I hope all of this was helpful for you. If this particular subject doesn't apply to you, maybe you can share it with a friend or family member where it does. So hope that was helpful, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye.